She said at my mom's birthday, "This party is boring. Let's leave and do something fun." My mom had terminal cancer. This was her last birthday. I said, "You should go." She made a scene leaving. When I stayed, and my mom whispered, "I never like her anyway." I, 30 male, am an elementary school PE teacher. I coach JV basketball in the winter and help with track in the spring. I mention this because people in my life sometimes treat my job like it's a placeholder, like I'm still figuring out what I really want to do. I'm not. I love my job. I'm good at it. But my girlfriend always introduced me at parties as "he works at a school," and then quickly changed the subject. That should have been my first clue about how she saw me. We'd been together for 2.5 years. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, the kind of job where you make good money and start believing the money is a personality trait. She drove a leased Audi Q5, wore Lululemon like a uniform, and had this way of walking into any room and immediately assessing whether the room was worth her time. Some people found that confident. I found it attractive at first. Then I found it exhausting. Then I found it cruel. But this story isn't really about her. It's about my mom. My mom was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 14 months ago. If you know anything about pancreatic cancer, you know the survival stats. The oncologist told us to measure time in months, not years. She did chemo. It bought some time. It also took 30 pounds off a woman who was already small and turned her hair from silver to gone. She wore scarves and called them her collection and made jokes about finally having an excuse to buy accessories. That was my mom, turning the worst thing that ever happened to her into a reason to coordinate with her outfit. By the time her birthday came around, her 63rd, we all knew. Nobody said it out loud, but we knew. This was the last one. The hospice nurse had started coming twice a week. My mom was spending most of her time in the recliner my dad bought her, the one with the heating pad built in, watching cooking shows she'd never actually cook from again. She weighed maybe 102 pounds. She got tired walking to the bathroom, but she wanted a birthday party. A real one. Not a sad, candlelit gathering where everyone speaks in whispers and says things like "she looks good," all things considered. She wanted cake and music and her people around her. She told me, sitting in that recliner with a blanket on her lap, "I want to laugh on my birthday. I've earned that." So we threw her a party. My dad and I, at my parents' house. We invited about 25 people, her siblings, her closest friends, some neighbors, my brother and his wife, a few of her former coworkers from the school district where she'd been a secretary for 21 years. I made a playlist of her favorite songs. My dad ordered a Tres Leches cake because that was her thing. My brother brought her favorite flowers, yellow tulips, always yellow tulips. We set up a folding table on the back deck with a tablecloth and streamers. It wasn't fancy. It was perfect. My girlfriend came. Late. 40 minutes late. She walked in wearing a cocktail dress and heels to a backyard birthday party for a dying woman, looked around at the folding chairs and the Bluetooth speaker and the paper plates, and I watched her face do this micro-expression thing, this slight tightening around her mouth, that I'd learned to recognize as her "this is beneath me" look. She didn't say hello to my mom first. She came over to me, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "How long are we staying?" "It's my mom's birthday." "I know, but how long?" "As long as it takes." She sighed, not quietly, the kind of sigh that's designed to be heard. Then she got a glass of wine and sat in the corner of the deck, scrolling her phone. For about an hour, things were fine. My mom was in her recliner that we'd moved near the sliding door, so she could see the deck. She was smiling. She was laughing. My aunt was doing her impression of their mother, which involved a thick accent and a wooden spoon gesture that had the whole room dying. My brother's wife was feeding my mom tiny bites of cake because her appetite was basically gone, but she wanted to taste it. My dad was standing behind the recliner with his hand on my mom's shoulder, which is where his hand had been for approximately 40 years. It was exactly what she asked for. People laughing, being normal, not treating her like glass. Then my girlfriend walked up to me. I was refilling the drink cooler on the deck and said, loud enough for at least 4 people to hear, "Babe, this party is so boring. Let's leave and go do something fun." I put the bag of ice down. I turned around and looked at her. "What did you say?" I said, "Let's go. We've been here for like an hour. My friend is having a rooftop thing downtown. We could still make it." My mom has terminal cancer. This is her birthday party. I know, and it's sweet, but she's barely awake, and everyone here is like 60 years old. We can come back and visit her tomorrow. I looked past her through the sliding door. My mom was awake. She was watching us. She couldn't hear the conversation from inside. The music was on. People were talking, but she could see my face. And she could see my girlfriend's body language. The leaning away, the phone still in her hand, the posture of someone trying to leave. I turned back to my girlfriend. You should go. Finally. Let me grab my. No. You should go. I'm staying. She stopped. What? Go to the rooftop thing. I'm staying here with my mom. You're not coming? No. Because of this? She gestured at the backyard like it was a crime scene. Paper plates. Streamers. Yellow tulips. A dying woman's last birthday. Yes. Because of this. You're choosing this over actual plans? I'm choosing my mother over a rooftop. She stared at me. Then she did the thing she always did when she didn't get what she wanted. She escalated. She raised her voice just enough. Fine. Stay at the boring party. I'll go have fun without you. She said it loud enough that the conversation on the deck paused. My aunt looked over. My brother looked over. My dad's hand tightened on my mom's shoulder. The Bluetooth speaker was playing Fleetwood Mac, and suddenly it was the loudest thing in the yard. She grabbed her purse, knocked her wine glass off the railing, didn't pick it up, and walked through the house to the front door. Her heels clicked on my parents' hardwood floor all the way out. She didn't say goodbye to my mom. She didn't say goodbye to anyone. The door closed. The deck was quiet for about 5 seconds. Then my aunt said, "Well, more cake for us." And my brother's wife laughed, and my dad shook his head, and someone turned the music up slightly, and the party continued. I went inside to check on my mom. She was looking at me from the recliner with this expression. If you've ever seen a parent look at their kid with total, clear-eyed love mixed with, "I've been trying to tell you something for 2 years," that was the expression. I knelt down next to the recliner. "I'm sorry about that, Mom." She put her hand on my face. Her hand was cold. It was always cold now. "Sweetheart," she said. "I never like her anyway." I laughed. She laughed. It turned into a cough, and I held her water cup for her, and she took a sip, and then she said, "Stay with people who'd sit in folding chairs for you." That's the whole secret. I stayed until the last guest left at 10 p.m. I helped my dad clean up. I put the leftover cake in the fridge. I folded the chairs and took down the streamers. My mom fell asleep in her recliner around 8:30, which was late for her. She was smiling in her sleep. I kissed her forehead before I left. She died 6 weeks later. Update 1. 8 days after the party. Okay, so I need to catch everyone up on what happened after the party, because it got worse before it got anything else. My girlfriend texted me the morning after the party. Not an apology. Not even close. The text said, "I hope you had fun at your little party. I had an amazing time downtown. You missed out." I didn't respond. She texted again 4 hours later. "So you're giving me the silent treatment now?" Real mature. I replied, "I'm not giving you the silent treatment. I'm deciding what I want to say." "Well, decide faster because this is annoying." I took 2 more days. Not as a power move. I genuinely needed to think. Because breaking up with someone isn't just an emotional decision when you've been together for 2.5 years. We had shared a Costco membership. She had a drawer at my apartment. I had a suit jacket at hers. There's logistics to ending a life you've partially merged, even when the ending is obvious. On Wednesday, I drove to her apartment after work. She opened the door in her workout clothes, AirPods in, clearly mid-podcast. She pulled one AirPod out like I was interrupting something. "We need to talk," I said. "About what?" "About Saturday." "Oh my God, are you still on that?" "It was a party. I left early." "People do that." "You called my dying mother's birthday party boring. In front of my family." I said the party was boring. "I didn't say your mom was boring." "You knocked a wine glass off the railing and didn't pick it up." "It was an accident." "It wasn't. I watched you do it." "Okay, so I was annoyed." "Big deal. You chose a backyard cookout over spending the evening with me. How do you think that made me feel?" I almost engaged with that. Almost. The old version of me. The one who spent 2.5 years accommodating her feelings at the expense of my own. Almost said, "I understand your perspective." But I heard my mom's voice in my head. "Stay with people who'd sit in folding chairs for you." "We're done," I said. "Excuse me. I'm ending this." We're done. She laughed. It was the same laugh she used when someone told her something she considered beneath her intelligence. Dismissive, like I'd mispronounced a word. You're breaking up with me because I didn't want to sit in a folding chair eating grocery store cake. The cake was tres leches from a Mexican bakery, and it was delicious. And yes, you're insane. I'll come get my stuff on Friday. I'd appreciate it if you could box up whatever you have of mine. I'm not boxing up anything. If you want to be dramatic, do it on your own time. Friday, I said, and I left. Friday, I went back with my brother. Having him there was strategic, not because I expected violence, but because I needed a witness in case she claimed I did something I didn't. My brother had zero patience for her under normal circumstances. After what she'd said at the party, he had less than zero. She'd put my stuff in a garbage bag. Not a box. A black hefty garbage bag. My suit jacket, my phone charger, some books, a framed photo of me and my mom from last Christmas. She'd put a framed photo of me and my terminally ill mother in a garbage bag. My brother looked at the bag, looked at me, looked at her, and said, "Classy." She said, "He's lucky I didn't throw it out." I took the bag. My brother took the bag. We left. In the truck, my brother said, "I need you to know that Mom would have thrown that woman into the sun." He was right. That should have been the end. Clean break. Move on. But entitled people don't accept endings they didn't choose. She started with the mutual friends. We didn't have a ton of overlap. Her friends were mostly from work, and mine were mostly from coaching in college. But there were a few. A couple we double-dated with a few times. A guy from her office who I'd played pickup basketball with. She told each of them a version of the story that was so distorted I barely recognized it. Her version: I'd abandoned her at a depressing family event and then dumped her without warning because she expressed a preference to leave early. No mention of the terminal cancer. No mention of boring. No mention of the wine glass or the scene or the heels clicking through the house. Just a man who left a woman for wanting to go to a different party. The basketball guy texted me, "Hey man, heard you and her broke up. She said you ghosted her at some family thing? That doesn't sound like you." I told him what actually happened. He went quiet for a day and then replied, "Yeah, that sounds more like her." But here's what really escalated things. 4 days after the breakup, she sent me an invoice. An actual invoice. She'd created it in some template app. It itemized shared expenses she claimed I owed her. The Costco membership renewal, $65. She paid the last one. A dinner she'd covered on my birthday, $180. Gas money for driving to my parents' house multiple times, $220, a number she clearly made up. A jacket she'd bought me as a gift, $340. Total, $805. She actually Venmo requested me for $805. I screenshot the request and sent it to my brother. He replied with 3 crying laughing emojis and, "She's billing you for being her boyfriend." I declined the Venmo request. She sent it again. I declined it again. She sent it a third time with a note. "Pay what you owe or I'm taking this further." I screenshot everything and emailed it to myself as a dated record. Then I blocked her on Venmo. Update 2, 3 weeks later. My mom passed away on a Tuesday morning. Peacefully, at home, in the recliner with a heating pad. My dad was holding her hand. My brother and I were in the kitchen making coffee. The hospice nurse said she just stopped, like a clock winding down. Quiet, gentle, the way she would have wanted. I'm not going to write a lot about this part because it's mine and it's private and I'm still carrying it close. But I'll say this, the party was worth everything. Every folding chair, every paper plate, every second of that woman's laughter on her last birthday. I will live on that memory for the rest of my life. The funeral was 5 days later. Small, family, and close friends. The school district where she'd worked sent a beautiful arrangement. My JV basketball kids pooled together and sent a card signed by all 14 of them, which broke me in a way nothing else did. Teenagers being sincere is devastating. I did not invite my ex, obviously, but she found out because one of the mutual friends posted a condolence on social media, and my ex saw it. What happened next is the reason for this update. She didn't come to the funeral. She didn't send flowers. She didn't send a text, a card, nothing. What she did do, 2 days after we buried my mother, was send me an email. The email said, and I'm paraphrasing only slightly, that she was sorry for my loss, first line, obligatory, clearly copy-pasted from some template, and that she hoped I could now see clearly that our breakup had been an impulsive decision made during an emotional time. She said she'd been giving me space to deal with my family situation, and that she was open to reconnecting when I was ready. She framed my mother's terminal illness, the thing that defined the last 14 months of my life, as a family situation I needed space to deal with, like it was a plumbing issue. Then, in the last paragraph, she reminded me about the $805. 2 days after my mother's funeral, she brought up the invoice. In a condolence email, I didn't respond. I forwarded the email to my brother, who responded with a single word that I won't repeat here. And then I closed my laptop and went to my parents' house and sat with my dad, who was sitting in the recliner because it still smelled like my mom's perfume and he didn't want to wash the blanket yet. But she wasn't done. The week after the funeral, she launched what I can only describe as a sympathy campaign. She told people, mutual acquaintances, her co-workers, even a few of my brother's wife's friends, that she was devastated about my mom's passing and that I had shut her out during the hardest time. She positioned herself as a grieving, almost daughter-in-law who'd been unfairly excluded from mourning. She told people she'd loved my mom like her own. My aunt, my mom's sister, 67 years old, takes no prisoners, caught wind of this through a neighborhood connection. She called me and said, "That girl is telling people she loved your mother. Your mother told me last Thanksgiving that girl reminded her of a headache she couldn't fix with Tylenol." I laughed for the first time in a week. But the sympathy campaign was working, at least partially. People who didn't know the full story were reaching out to her with condolences. She was soaking it up, posting vague things about grief and loss, and learning to let go that generated comments from people who assumed she'd lost someone close to her. She hadn't. She'd lost access to someone and was repackaging it as grief. My brother wanted to confront her. I told him no. My dad, who had barely spoken the week since Mom died, looked up from the recliner and said, "Don't waste energy on people who perform feelings they never had." He went back to staring at the cooking channel my mom used to watch. He watched it every night now, never changed the channel. I took his advice. I didn't confront her. Instead, I focused on what mattered. My mom's will was straightforward. Everything went to my dad. But she'd written letters, actual handwritten letters, to me, my brother, my dad, and my aunt. She'd done this a few months before, when she still had the energy to hold a pen for more than 10 minutes. They were sealed in envelopes with our names on them, kept in her nightstand drawer. I opened mine on the back deck of my parents' house, sitting in one of the folding chairs from the party. It was 2 pages. I'm not going to share most of it because it's mine. But there was one part that's relevant. She wrote, "You have a good heart, but you give it to people who don't take care of it. Stop doing that. The right person won't make you feel small at your mother's birthday party. The right person will be the one handing me cake." She knew. She'd always known. Moms always know. Update 3. Final. 6 weeks later. This is the last update. I want to close this out because the story has an ending now, and it's not the one I expected. After my mom passed, I went quiet. Focused on my dad. Focused on work. My JV kids had their season starting, and those 14 teenagers needed me present, so I was present. Coaching after school, running drills, doing the thing that makes me feel most like myself. I ate dinner at my parents' house 3 or 4 nights a week because my dad was cooking for 2 out of habit and making way too much food and couldn't stand eating alone. My ex continued her campaign for about 2 more weeks after the funeral. Vague posts, sympathetic comments, the whole performance. But here's the thing about sympathy campaigns. They require a fresh supply of people who don't know the truth. And the truth was slowly getting around. It started with the basketball guy. He'd heard her version initially, but after I told him what actually happened at the party, he started paying closer attention. He noticed her posts about grief and loss and mentioned to a coworker of hers, casually, over beers, that it was weird she was posting about grief when she called the dying woman's birthday party boring and left to go to a rooftop bar. That coworker told another coworker. That coworker happened to sit next to my ex at the office. And in the way that information moves through an office, not through confrontation, but through the quiet recalibration of how people look at you, things shifted. She didn't get called out. She didn't get publicly shamed. Nothing dramatic. But people stopped engaging with her posts. The sympathetic comments dried up. A few people who'd reached out to her with condolences quietly unfollowed. It was subtle, but she felt it. I know she felt it because she archived or deleted most of those posts within a week. The truth doesn't always arrive with a megaphone. Sometimes it just shows up quietly and sits down and lets people figure it out on their own. Now the invoice situation. This had been bothering me. Not the $805. That was absurd and I wasn't paying it. What bothered me was that she'd Venmo requested me 3 times and I'd simply blocked her. It felt unresolved. My brother's wife, who is a paralegal and possibly the most calmly terrifying person I know, suggested I send a formal response. Not a legal threat, just a documented response that closed the loop. She helped me draft a letter. The letter stated, in clear terms, I did not owe her $805 or any amount. The Costco membership was a shared expense we'd alternated annually. I'd paid the prior year's renewal. The birthday dinner was a gift, not a loan. The gas money was fabricated. The jacket was a Christmas gift, and gifts do not create debts. Furthermore, I noted that during our 2.5-year relationship, I had conservatively spent over $6,000 more than her on shared meals, activities, and expenses, which I was not requesting reimbursement for, because that's not how relationships work. I sent it by email with a read receipt. She opened it. She never mentioned the $805 again. But the letter did something I didn't fully intend. It made her realize I was documenting things. That I had dates, amounts, screenshots, the Venmo requests, the condolence email turned invoice, the garbage bag with my mom's photo in it. All of it preserved and organized. I wasn't building a legal case. I'm not suing anyone. I just wanted her to understand that her version of events wasn't the only record that existed, and that if she continued pushing her narrative, there was a paper trail that told a very different story. She went quiet after the letter. Completely quiet. No more texts through mutual friends. No more Venmo requests. No more sympathy posts. Just silence. The most beautiful silence I've experienced since Fleetwood Mac was playing on a Bluetooth speaker in my parents' backyard. 2 weeks after the letter, the basketball guy told me she'd started dating someone from her gym. A finance guy. Apparently, he drove a BMW and took her to the kind of restaurants she'd always wished I could afford. Good for her. Genuinely. She'll be his problem now, and maybe the finance guy will enjoy being invoiced for the privilege. Here's where I am. I teach PE. I coach basketball. I eat at my dad's house because he makes too much pot roast, and somebody has to eat it, and he's not going to stop setting 2 places at the table anytime soon. I sit on the back deck sometimes in the folding chairs we never put away. My brother comes over on Sundays, and we watch football with Dad, and nobody says much because my mom used to be the one who kept the conversation going, and none of us have figured out how to do that yet. I have my mom's letter in my nightstand drawer. The same drawer she kept hers in. I read it on days when I feel small, which is more often than I'd like to admit. The line about the birthday party, the right person will be the one handing me cake. That's the line that stays. At the party, do you know who was handing my mom cake? My brother's wife. On a paper plate, with a plastic fork, kneeling next to the recliner, cutting bites small enough that my mom could manage them, talking to her about the cooking show they'd both been watching, laughing about a chef who used too much butter. That's what love looks like. It looks like a paper plate and a plastic fork and kneeling on the ground so a dying woman doesn't have to reach. My ex saw that scene and called it boring. I don't hate her. I want to be clear about that. Hate requires energy I'm spending on better things. But I see her clearly now in a way I couldn't when I was in it. She wasn't a bad person in the cartoonish sense. She was a person who measured every room by what it could offer her, and a backyard birthday party for a woman who was dying offered her nothing. So she left. And in leaving, she showed me, and my mom, and my dad, and everyone holding a paper plate on that deck, exactly who she was. My mom saw it before anyone. Moms always see it first. I never like her anyway. Yeah, Mom. I know. I should have listened sooner. I'm listening now. That's it. That's the whole story. I'm gonna go eat pot roast.